Namaskaram to everyone. Last week we studied the 13th verse, Tribera Gunai, the threefold gunas, the natures. Everyone is deluded. Mohitam. He says all of us are deluded because of these gunas. This world does not know me well, as I am above them and immutable. So the very pertinent point that the text is saying, the verse is saying, is we're all deluded because we are all bound, caught up in these gunas, these natures, these expressions. So we are helplessly fallen a prey to these, to the clutches of these gunas. So the appeal is to evolve, to go beyond, to rise from the lowest guna, to come to the highest guna. And at some point, you'll have to transcend that guna as well. Now, such an effort needs great clarity, great vision, a profound ideal in order to achieve that objective. So the continuous attempt should be to rise from the lowest guna to the highest and then go beyond it. And it's important that so how do you practice this quality with reference to the gunas? I said the first step of practice, the first level of practice is to be objective to others' gunas. Do not identify with others' natures. It's like every time I go to catch a bus, I go to the bus stand. By the time I go, it's pretty hot because my shift is in the afternoon. So it's pretty hot. So when I go, I lean on to the pole of the bus shed. And the pole is baking in the sun, it's hot. And I lean on and I burn myself. Oh, it burned myself. And it's so badly burnt that I want to go and get myself, attended to. So I go back home and my wife very concernedly says, oh, what happened? Oh, you burnt yourself. So she will come and apply something. And she'll say, don't worry, my dear, it'll all be well. I go back because I have to go back to the office. I go back with this constant burning sensation on my right side. And I go back and the bus hasn't arrived. What I do? I lean onto my left side. The pole is going to be hot. Why are you holding on to the pole and getting burnt? Why don't you have the wisdom to understand that is the very nature, that is the very swabhava, that is the character of that pole which is exposed to the sun, which is going to be hot? Don't lean on to it. I'm just drawing an analogy that you should extend that principle to everything that you relate in life, to things and beings. Everything has their nature. You say, what can I do with your nature? I can't do anything with your nature, can I? If you want to do something about your nature, you got to put in effort. But the least I can do is I don't get carried away with your nature. So the first step, I'm just quickly repeating, and he continues the same concept next verse, but just recapping. The first thing we learned is do not get involved in others' gunas. And then slowly move closer to yourself. Don't be involved in your own gunas. Understand that there is a greater self which you are. You will have to go beyond these gunas. So what do? You got to rise from the lowest guna to the highest guna in you, and then get to the self which is beyond the gunas. And the quintessential effort we summed up by saying, and I will repeat and sum it up to what was meant and said in the 13th verse. We said the spiritual effort would tantamount to stifling of tamas, sustaining of rajas, and enhancing sattva, promoting sattva. So when this threefold effort is attempted to the gunas, there would be a greater chance the self starts reflecting through the sattva. The self doesn't reflect through tamas and rajoguna. The self only reflects through a sattvic person to the extent you have sattva. So what do? I need to keep polishing the impurities of rajas and tamas and let the sattva in me rise so that the self in me expresses, gushes forth. It's like when you open the gates of the dam, what would happen? The water gushes forth. In that sense, the divinity in you is being withheld, is being contained, is being dammed. Open up the dam, the doors of the dam. Let the purity, let the divinity gush out. In fact, he says in the Gita, I don't know which chapter it is, he says, it's like he talks of a king residing in the body, and he calls the body as a city of 9 gates. And the king residing in that kingdom, a city which has 9 or 10 gates. The 10 gates. The 10 gates are the 5 organs of perception, the 5 organs of action. You can tell 12 gates, the mind and the intellect. So the body is the kingdom which has 12 gates and the king residing in it. Who is the king? The Atman, the self. But you don't want the Atman and the self to be locked up within those gates, isn't it? It must express out. So one is the goal, which is to get to that state of transcending the self. Other is the path, which is to promote your sattva and keep a lid on rajas and tamas so that you are free from the delusion which these gunas create. This is not being philosophic. It is being very clear visioned in trying to understand what the text is stating. All right. So we'll move on to the 14th verse, please. Devi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mame vaye prapadhyante maya metam tarantite. Devi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mame vaye prapadhyante maya metam tarantite. A very beautiful construction here. He says, verily, this divine illusion of mind. Maya, we have heard. But we have not often heard Daivi, divine illusion. Why is this illusion divine? Illusion is nothing but the falsehood. But why does he call it as divine illusion? I'll get to that. And he says that illusion which is divine is also mine. This divine illusion of mine, which is made up of the gunas, which I've just mentioned in the 13th verse, is very difficult to cross over. It's not easy to cross over. It's very difficult. Duratyaya. Mama Maya Duratyaya. It's not easy. It's certainly not easy. It's like somebody wants to swim across the English Channel. Not easy, man. You and I could be a good swimmer, but no ordinary swimmer can swim across the English Channel. You got to be an extraordinary fitness and caliber and mental strength to achieve that. Any worldly feat is challenging. A spiritual feat to cross this divine illusion of mind, it's not difficult. It's difficult. He's not saying it impossible. Huh? He's only saying it's difficult. And then the second half, he says, those who take refuge in me, mameva ye prapadyante. Prapadyante is those who seek me, those who take refuge in me. Maya metam tarantite. They alone will cross over this illusion. You know, when you have split it like this and read bit by bit, you've got the message of the verse. You almost will say, thank you, sir. Let's move on to the next verse. Because it's very clear. I understood everything. Yeah. Thank you, Gayatri Ma. Don't literally go to the next verse. Huh? No, I am not attached to it. If you say next verse, we'll move to the next verse. You may say, you are wondering, this fellow is too attached to everything that he does. Huh? He'll nutchify us and he'll keep on saying the same thing again and again. No. Reddy Garu, I read your mind. I know what's going in your mind. You know, only Reddy Garu is laughing. That means Sanjay and Reddy Garu both laughed. So both of you I have read your mind.
No, Pranam Guruji. I appreciate your humorous way of putting across. I'm laughing for that.
You please don't escape. I caught you there, but don't try to escape my question. Huh? So the first appreciate Reddy Garu. So the important point here we got to note. The few pertinent points that stand out. Firstly, he says he calls it as a divine illusion. Now, why he calls it as a divine illusion is because the base of the illusion is divinity. The illusion that is being created arises from divinity. So the base, the substratum of the world, which is an illusion, is supported by the divine truth, the divinity itself. Since the divinity is a substratum of the illusion, he calls it as a divine illusion. There's nothing more to it than that, as simple as that, no? Because it has sprung from the self, from the divinity, he calls it divine. It calls it divinity. Okay. Now, and then he makes this point where we all have to take a note of. He says it is difficult. It's difficult to cross over. Crossover means you cross from the shore of mortality to shore of immortality. You go from where you are to where you are not. You know, so there is this, the concept of crossover is often again used in the scriptures. When you talk example of crossover, Hariji, from what you have heard in the Shastras, when we talk of crossover, the analogy is often referred to. Can you relate to the analogy? I've already given you a cue. It should be fairly easy to answer that, Hariji. Could you please unmute yourself, sir? Yes. Hari Om, sir. Hari Om, sir.
I'm sorry, Guruji, I'm not able to I could only think of something which I'm sure you are not referring to.
No, sir. If you have not been in the present when I asked you, see, whenever they talk of crossover, they're talking about the shore of mortality to the shore of immortality. So when we talk of the shore of mortality to immortality, what do you use to cross over?
The boat of life.
The boat, correct. So whenever they talk of crossover, they are referring to the boat metaphor. The famous boat metaphor. Even though the verse doesn't talk of it, there is an indirect reference to that boat metaphor. So let's say the ocean here. What is the ocean? Just a quick point of comparison. So we'll not go into the detail of it, but just when you talk of the metaphor, there are certain comparables. So the ocean is, I'll ask you a couple of points here, Harish. The ocean.
The ups and downs, the world of experiences.
The experience is a product
of the
of
change.
You. No, of a product of you and the world, isn't it? But the ocean by itself represents
the world.
The world. And the world is as rough as the seas of the water, which is the high tides, the rough surface of the water. It almost becomes impossible to navigate. You know, when you see some of these videos that do crop up, when these huge ships, huge container ships, when they are in the deeper sections of the ocean, and let's say the ocean is in a turmoil, and the whole ship just goes so deep, the nose dives so deep, and then it sails back. It's terrifying, nightmare. Even watching in a video, can't imagine being there in that ship. Oh my God, it's like a toothpick or a matchbox in that vast expanse of the water. It could be a 15, 20 feet cruise liner, but yet it could be the biggest container ship in the world, but yet it's just a small speck in that vast sheet. So that world is the water, and the waters are always rough. They are not going to be placid. Even if I'm not wrong, even the Dead Sea also is very rough, isn't it? I wonder why it's got the name called the Dead Sea. Is it almost placid? Yes, Venkatramji? Maybe. Obviously, it has got.
It's very greasy. I mean, because I've been to that place. It's very oily and greasy. But yeah, it's also very kind of calm, and you don't see so much of turmoil there. But it's a very dirty thing. I mean, you don't. I mean, at least I did not enjoy.
Yeah, there's no fun in it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There is. It's a crazy one.
Yeah. So since I'm with you, Venkatramji, the ocean is the world, which is all the time rough, ups and downs. Now, who is the individual here?
Who in the sense? Life?
In the analogy of the boat.
The boatman? Person who is rowing the boat or something like that.
In fact, the very boat itself is the individual.
Okay, boat is the individual. Okay.
Mm-hmm. You will appreciate when you get the entire comparables.
Okay.
The vast ocean is the world. The boat is the individual in the world who has to navigate himself, sail through, deal with the ups and downs because of your interaction. So it is your interaction with the world can be pleasant or unpleasant, isn't it? Yes. You could have a pleasant time in the sea, or you could have a very rough experience in the seas.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Now moving beyond what the obvious is. The Okay, Venkatramji, leave it at that. Perfect. Sanjay, there's individual is the boat. What is the mind compared to?
The waves. No.
See, the world is the waters. The individual is the boat. Now we are only concentrating on the individual. The individual has got the physical body is the physical boat. And then the other elements. One element is the mind. What is the mind in the boat? Don't read the fine line, please. It's just trying to convey the philosophy here.
Yeah.
So the mind here is the passenger. The passenger who's experiencing the journey. The whole objective of the person taking that voyage is to have a pleasant time, isn't it? So the mind has to be peaceful in the course of the journey. So the mind is the passenger. All right. And then there is the captain. The entire course, the entire journey is because of the captain. No. What is the captain?
God, Paramatman, Atman, Krishna in this case, I guess, if we're in the context of the Bhagavad Gita. No?
No. Sanjay, it'll be good you take a note, not just a mental note, take a note of it.
Yeah.
We have said so far, the ocean is the world. The rough waves are the ups and downs of the world. The individual is the boat. The mind is the passenger. The captain is the intellect, the buddhi. What drives the human experience, what determines your destiny is the choices that's made by the intellect. It is not determined by God. It is determined by the choices you make in life. I make a fatal choice, I face the consequences. I make a wise choice, so are the consequences. What I sow, so I reap. It's the intellect. And that which makes a human, a chef d'oeuvre, a masterpiece of creation is the intellect. Take the intellect out of a human being, we are worse than an animal. A person without an intellect, there's nothing in him. But an animal has no intellect, but it is far more disciplined, far more valuable. You get it? And then there is the book, the manual the captain has. Let me ask Sushmama. The captain has a book, a manual, which he follows. How to operate the ship. He would have know-how of every nook and corner of the ship, every operation. There's a manual. He'll follow that. So what is the manual here?
I'm not sure, Guruji, because he has to decide by the intellect.
He decides by the intellect, but he'll always fall back on a manual. If something has gone wrong in the engine, if something goes wrong somewhere, first he'll call for the drawings, and where is the main reference book where how things operate. There's an SOP for everything, isn't it? So what is that?
What is the
manual?
If he has wisdom, it's the wisdom which he's got through his studying scriptures and things.
Correct. A captain is a very experienced captain. He has navigated the various waters. He has learned that skill. He has mastered. He has got wisdom. But where did he get all that wisdom from? From the study, from the know-how which he has picked up, that manual of the very art of navigation. So the book, he falls back, that handbook or the reference manual is the Gita in the context of the scriptures. Without that, he wouldn't have learned that art. And if there was a problem, he will fall back on that manual, isn't it? So there is the manual. There is a manual, there is the intellect, but there is a compass that guides the ship to navigate in the direction. So what is the I have to, Gatrima, please tell me what punishments to issue. The order of punishment has to be clearly set. The SOPs must be set and punishments following that. And getting answers before the questions are asked. We've reached a very different level. Very high level we have reached. Sanjay, you would not have come across this kind of a group anywhere. Who are this bunch of fellows? What is going on? I somehow came across this group and now I don't know. Am I sane or these people are sane? They are completely influencing me. I will only say, please don't be influenced by me and this whole group. You are welcome to attend, but please think and take the clear decision for yourself. And then you have the mariner's compass, which a captain follows so that he is in course to the destination chosen. The compass which a mariner follows is his own conscience, the inner conscience. And the interesting point that the compass constantly points towards the north, the conscience only points towards the truth. And then there is the shore which it is left, the shore of mortality, and the shore it's going to reach is a shore of immortality. When you have sailed through the rough waves, and when you reach the shore, there's a bridge, there's a gangway that you have to walk across to reach the destination. So what is that gangway? Ashama, what is the gangway?
The study of the scriptures.
Which you have it right from the very beginning, isn't it? But then you want to disembark the ship, you want to get onto the shore of your destination, there is that bridge. There's no way you can get off. There is that ramp or the bridge, the gangway. So what is that bridge or the gangway which takes you to the destination, the final journey you will have to take? It is a journey you have taken, but that final journey has to be taken to reach the destination. And it's everything other than what is said. It can't be the same thing. No idea? Okay, no problem. Sushmama?
It is through selfless deeds, he's trying to reach self-realization. Can that be an analogy? Through renunciation and selfless deeds?
I don't think it directly fits into the context, Ma. In fact, the last journey every spiritual seeker has to go through, and the last journey is meditation. So the gangway, the last leg of spiritual journey is meditation. When you truly have, and when do you reach that? Obviously, when you have renounced the lower and embarked on that higher, you have tread that path, you have reached that gateway, and the last few steps on the gangway. Having reached the gateway, you will take a few steps in the gangway and then you reach the shore of immortality, which is self-realization. Now, just that example, when they talk about crossover, there's so much implied through that. And thanks to the impeccable effort of Hariji to have captured everything. So the least you can do is take a snapshot. And then you can write it down at your convenience. Wonderful, Hariji. I'm not going through all of that, but I'm certain it's perfect. So the point we took off when we got into this analogy, he says it's difficult to cross over. Why is it difficult? Because it requires consistent effort. It is not the question of effort, it's the question of concerted effort, it's a question of consistent effort. And how does he qualify that? How does he mention that consistent effort? Gayatrima, can you put the translation out again, please? He says it's difficult to cross over, but you can cross over, but it requires concerted, consistent, uncompromising effort. And what is that phrase which gives reference to that? Rajima, what is that phrase which is conveying that?
Guruji, would it be those who take refuge in me alone?
Yes. Those who take refuge in me alone. That's the point. Yes, ma. One who takes refuge in me alone means there is no other interest. The famous words of the Gita, Ananyash chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyaham. You will get yoga and kshema. Kshema is you will get material comfort. Yoga is you will gain that spiritual union. You want to attain either, you will have to apply this principle contained, mentioned in that verse, Ananya Chinta. Ananya Chinta is uncompromising consistency of thought, where you gain what you seek. So every action, whatever you're doing, every action, you do it only for the self. Very difficult indeed. You know that. You also are acquainted with this knowledge. You're also familiar with these ideas. You also know what is self-realization. How many of your actions are dedicated towards this goal of self-realization? Is it easy? If anybody says easy, I will say, read this verse again. It is certainly not easy. Certainly not easy. To what is difficult is not the effort. The difficult element is consistency in the effort. It is the ananya chinta that's the problem, not the chinta. We all think once in a while, as Sant Kabir says, dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi. Jo sukh mein sumiran kare, dukh kahe ko hoy. Everybody is thinking of the higher in sorrow, but nobody thinks of the self in the acme of their life, in the best moments of their life. Nobody thinks. So what it requires is that to inject that level of consistency in the pursuit. It's not the pursuit here. We are all in the pursuit, but we agree that there's a lot of inconsistency in our thought. The goal very often goes out of focus. It comes back and it goes off. So we got to have our blinkers on. So the accent is, it is difficult to cross over because, why is it difficult to cross over? Rajima? Why is it difficult to cross over?
It's very easy to get distracted and therefore lacks consistency.
Get distracted, we lack consistency. Difficult to cross over because he says it's a divine illusion. It's not easy. Yeah, it's very gripping. It's going to take a lot of effort to get out of it. So to have that uncompromising thought. Now we have compromised the thought of the self with the thought of the world, isn't it? But to have that uncompromising thought of the self is not easy. Eva, the Sanskrit word eva means alone. Me alone. Mameva. Me alone. You know, if I have a divided loyalty to my wife, can I get an undivided loyalty from her? Impossible. If I'm unfaithful of my love to my spouse, I can't expect that love from my spouse. Isn't it simple in worldly sense? I got to give all what I have to get all what she can give to me. The same way, I got to have undivided loyalty to the self to gain that vision or cognition or experience of the self. Now, today we have a divided loyalty to the self. We are not fully loyal in our pursuit of the self. On what fairness you think the self will reciprocate your love to it? It will not. And you ask your conscience how true you are to it. Everything am I doing to get to the self? I don't think so. Because we have developed a divided loyalty. We are not true in this pursuit. We have not developed, in fact, it's very right to say in this context, you should have a sort of fanaticism to get to the self. In fact, I would go to the extent and say you could have an OCD to the self. You are all right to have an OCD to the self. And what is OCD? You know, that disorder. You can have that compulsive disorder, but I have that only to get to the self. It's a kind of a paranoia. You get a kind of a feverish anxiety, a feverish pursuit. And I only see that and nothing else. It's like a newfound love of a teenager. He's found his girlfriend. Where are his thoughts? Venkatramji.
Yeah, I have a question, Guruji.
You must answer my question first.
I don't know. I'm no longer a teenager now. So
imagine yourself to be that.
yeah, always obviously with his thoughts are around his girlfriend or things like
around
that. Yeah.
his beloved, isn't it?
Beloved, yeah.
That lady love of his has consumed his life, isn't it?
Yeah.
His life seems a void without that lady love. If he doesn't hear from her, if she's not in a good mood, he goes through sleepless nights. What have I done to upset her? So that kind of a fanaticism, you have got into that kind of an obsession. Is just that we have to direct that obsession from the world to the self. All what we need to do is give it a little direction, but maintain that obsession which we have. And the more knowledge you have, the more chances are you will consider.
Yes.
It's more point of view considering. It's not how much I say. I can keep, keep talking and talking rest of my life. But if you don't consider, something is going to change, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. You had something.
So I have that specific take refuge in me. Me, the interpretation of me here is basically our own self. Whereas is it Lord Krishna is saying take refuge in me means take refuge in Krishna consciousness, as some of, or it is me means take refuge in your own self and do good. That
Venkataramji,
me word, me word.
Venkataramji, first I want to clarify one point before I get to the question. Refuge and refugee are two different things.
No, refuge in, I mean, in the sense, take refuge in me is saying, not refuge.
Isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Refuge. Okay. So, very forgive me for my, I keep losing my focus here and there, I'll come back to the context. So the word me, I'm reminded of one great guru, Rajima. The me, in me, in me, in you, in me, I don't know. I can't reach that level. But never mind. The me, when these great masters use that word me, the word me or I, the first person singular pronoun, when they mean, and they always meant the Atman, the self.
Okay.
And not the individual personality. Now, what needs to be clarified? Why did they use the word I or me? So when you use the word I or me, you are denoting, you are representing what you are identifying with, isn't it?
Yes.
And what is your identification? Your identification is with your body, your mind, your intellect, which is your individuality. You are an ex person. You are an Indian, you are a Hindu, you are etc., etc., etc. These are all that you are identifying with, isn't it? Now, when a man of realization says me, they have completely identified with the self and disidentified with all these bondages or appendages. Okay. So when having reached the self, when they say me, they only are implying the self within, not the individual ego or the other identification.
Okay.
So the word me always means the self, not. So when Christ said me, he didn't say Mr. Christ. When Buddha said me, he didn't say Mr. Buddha. When Zoroaster said me, he didn't say Mr. Zoroaster. They don't mean the personalities. But all men, when they declared the truth, communicated the truth, they spoke from the vantage point of that God realization. And that point is the same. So the declarations they gave from that point is the truth the same. So when they say, come to me, come to that state of attainment, which is what your birthright is. Don't get attached to the personality. Not realizing this, people have formed, as you referred to, when is Krishna saying me, oh, Krishna consciousness.
Exactly. That was the confusion which I had, because I have read some of that where it is being interpreted differently. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, perfect, sir. Right. So once we understand, possibility of misunderstanding get ruled out.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Okay. Right. Perfect. Harishi, is that something that needs clarification? It will be clarified because he messaged me something privately. He's saying, in my limited understanding, the word obsession could have a negative connotation, but the positive way of saying it is a total faith and surrender. So the final step becomes a leap of faith, only possible after cutting off the past moorings or bondages. The faith is our strength. Indeed, no, I completely agree with you. It is not to suggest in a negative breath. What that fanaticism is, that kind of feverish anxiety we have. You've got to have that kind of belongingness to this path, to this journey, and you need to keep asserting it. So a simple observation. A doctor gains a certain acute perception of his profession. How does a doctor gain that acute perception of his profession? Isn't it because of an uncompromising discipline or the longevity of associating with that subject matter? Even before you start practicing and prescribing and seeing patients, you would have minimum given 10 years of your life into medicine, a minimum 10 years. And then comes a life of experience of meeting or coming across various patients and then working in different situations. And then you become established, and a good 15, 20 years before you even get successful in medicine, isn't it? But how did that doctor gain that kind of an acute perception or vision? Because of constancy of thought. A musician gains that perception or vision because of his continuous association of thought. Exactly the same way. If we have a vivid remembrance of the world because of our long association with the world. Now, how long is your association with the self? Hariji? How long is the association with the Brahman? I have set the example of a doctor, of an artist, and our vividness of our worldly transactions.
Only when you completely surrender is it possible. Just as the doctor has to have total focus, so do you have to have total focus.
But even if we take an honest assessment of oneself now, all of us, how consistent is my thought and vision on Brahman?
Very sporadic.
Very sporadic. It is not committed. So in order to gain that, I'm only justifying, I can get the pulse when you say fanaticism, but it's almost, you must get in, almost, it's like a bug in you. What is going to get us out of our clutches of this divine illusion is that the only ray of hope is that thought of the self. And that must get into us like a bug. You know, there are people, certain people are fanatic of their health. What come may, they will not do it. And it results in impeccable health. They are almost nachu. They will not do it. What come may, they'll not do it. I will go and fast, but I will not eat it. But there are people who will compromise, who will say, okay, not today, tomorrow, next meal. And it just goes on. You allow that compromise. That's it. You and I have certain health, but in order to gain, what is the difference between our health and a health of a guy who, I'm reminded of what Virat Kohli said, you know, the many interviews of his, the serious transformation, what he came across. He said one of the tournaments, this was maybe 5-10 years ago, he saw himself in the mirror and he said, if this is the kind of fitness I have, and am I going to represent my country at the international level, I can't allow myself to eat golgappas and baturas and street food and indulge into all these things and perform at that level. And that moment when he saw himself in the mirror, he said, I have to change. That was the moment there was a paradigm shift, and he is considered as one of the fitness freaks in the sports fraternity, not just cricket. And what kind of revolution he has brought to that sport is just that one thought, not thought that fanaticism, almost he's become a fanatic to that thought. He will say, I will not do it. And he said the kind of, you know, then came the, he just said, I went to a different gear. I rose from a very good player to an extraordinary player. It's just that you went to the Nova drive. So that spirit, it's not the words. I would love to use the surrender, faith, devotion, commitment, shraddha, all of that. But the spirit of it is, we got to have that attitude. I would not compromise. Now we have a divided loyalty. We got to have a uncompromising, single, unflinching thought and purpose in whatever you do. My objective is I must get to the self. And if you have that, those who seek me, rare indeed, those who seek me, he says, they will cross this divine illusion, not anybody. It's not meant for part-time, pastime, weekend spiritual satsangs. If it's only a weekend exercise for you, better luck next time. This is not meant for you. Spirituality is, what is spirituality? It's not a, I remember my guru used to say, it's not a part-time pastime. It's a ananya chinta, 24 hours. You got to be in it 24 hours. You can't do it. And that's the reason, one of the things my guru used to, because we all were young students and we all left the institution after the spending 3-4 years in the academy, and some of them, not necessarily everybody, but most of them, or fair percentage of them, would go and represent the work, and they would want to devote their lives. But then some of them would want to do another profession, whether run their family business or take up a job. Not that they needed to meet their ends. That was not the only reason, but they would want to do a job and pursue their other interests or other education. He had no objection to that, but he said, you will not be a representative of this cause wherever you are going. If you want to be my representative, you must only do this and this and this. You can't say, I will do 9-to-5 job, and then in the evening I'll go and do Gita. Like, I don't want that kind of divided loyalty from you. You want to be in this cause, you must be in this, sink and sail in this. Whether it will give you bread and butter, it may not give you bread and butter. It may not give you anything, it may give you everything. Doesn't matter. No guarantee. But are you dedicated to do this alone? And those who tested that stringent quality control, it's not a question of being his representative or the banner. Those are the people who will last in this path. So inwardly, what was being injected is, do you have it in you to be what it is? And when you read this, it all falls back in its place. It all flashes back and says why it is being intended that. So we got to have that kind of dedication to the self in order to reach there. Very difficult indeed, but it's possible when you seek me alone. And when you put it this way, it makes a lot of sense. And it also helps us to evaluate ourselves, oneself. Where do I stand with reference to that particular path and the goal, isn't it? Where do I stand? What can I sacrifice to do this? What can I give up for this? List of priorities, no? I'll answer this question. When my family is not, Vijaya is not in this classroom, I'll answer that question. Can I say no to that and get on with this? If I answer that question, I will not be allowed into the home. Therefore, for my own self-protection and self-interest, Reddy Garu, I am not taking that question. I'm sure you will appreciate and respect that. Yes, Reddy, are all following? It's so difficult to convey the spirit. It's not the words.
Yes, Guruji.
Convey that spirit is very, very difficult. And I'm sure you'll appreciate, sorry, Reddy, it can only be conveyed, if at all I've conveyed, by someone who is only in that. If I'm not in it, it's very difficult to convey, impossible. And I can only convey it to the extent I have committed to it. Otherwise, it's impossible to communicate. I can't. So it is the life that you lead, conveys in words, comes across in words, in the spirit that you feel. Otherwise, I don't know. I could have all the vocabulary, but yet I can't convey it. And don't sit in judgment and saying how well I've conveyed. That is not the objective. The objective is how far are you committed in this journey of the seeking the truth. It's not that I wouldn't be happy to receive a compliment from you, but the objective is not to gauge me here. The objective is to assess yourself here.
That's good.
Yes, Reddy Garu.
Yes, Guruji. I think this weekend spiritual satsangs, I'm sure with your statement is really rekindling our thought. I think we are nowhere. The growth you're talking about, we made 3 days, and again, maybe after this session, maybe half an hour to 1 hour impact of the session. Then get into the worldly and mundane things and firefighting issues and everything. And I'm sure, I think involving and taking a refugee, I think nowhere nearby. Maybe required a lot of sadhana, a lot of correcting ourselves in our lifestyle. I can say, I don't say it's a disorders, but lifestyle functioning the way we operate. Because we cannot target the two goals. We are trying to work on two. That's really challenging there. Yes. Either we have to choose either of that.
You got to choose. You got to make that choice.
Yeah, the choice is very, very challenging. To choose any one of that could be.
But it is, when you're given a choice, choose the best one.
Of course.
You know, the two in a platter. Choose something which is better off than that. Yeah. You know, you may not be ready for it, but yet the fact that you're chosen, you're a different caliber.
The thoughts are aligned, but in action we are missing. There's a huge gap.
So what precedes action?
Thoughts only.
So don't worry of the action. As long as the thoughts are, so let's say you are driving back from office and something so consuming, you're so pressed on the matters which has just transpired, and you have done for the day and you have to get home. You want to go to bed, you want to get home, you want to have your dinner, you're done for the day. And you're driving yourself. Still lingering on what has transpired, what you could do. You still reach your home without any conscious effort. You're driving. How do you get to that? How do you reach your home? Where are your thoughts? On the pressing matter of the company matters. But action is?
Driving.
Where? To your home.
Yeah.
How is it? Because that subconscious thought is so powerfully rooted. Action follows a automated act or process. It becomes automated. You don't have to apply yourself to it. Because subconsciously it is in your system. So you don't have to put a GPS to get your home. Then you must, I don't know which home you're going every day. Today, which home I'm going. Then you must correct the right destination. You see that we don't have to get into that kind of a thing. But if you're going to a place you have never been, you need a GPS. But if this knowledge, and I tell you that the quality of the thought is in the quality of the time. If this thought has any quality, it has to be in that quality time, Brahma Muhurtam. I beg you, I fall at your feet. Please get up and study. Not for your sake, for your guru's sake, for my sake, please study. You will understand the value of that quality of thought. You can't put it in a wrong time and expect it to sprout. It is not sprouting. We are all intelligent people, intellectual, too much of intellectual going on. But why are we not blossoming? Because you are not putting in the right time and the right place. Sir, you've gone to Japan. You've traveled the world, you've gone to that advanced country. You know, Japan has got one of the most sophisticated toilet systems in the world. You know that? You all know that? Their toilet systems, the toilet pot, is that the right description? The toilet pot you sit on is one of the most sophisticated, and you can spend ridiculous amount of money on just getting the best of that toilet systems in your homes. Please Google and find out after the class, not now, huh? Because the thought must be of Brahman, not toilet pot now. But what I'm saying is, when you buy the best of systems, you know, I can't even get into the detail of it. It would have the kind of buttons you would have on your dashboard of your car. It would have 15, 20 buttons. And if you are a first timer in Japan, even any public toilet would have go into a decent hotel or a star hotel, or you will be pampered. They say people try to spend more time on the toilet pot because they are pampered there. Bathrooms are so. Now, why I'm talking all that is, you bring one of those toilet pots from Japan. So where would you put it, sir?
Same place.
Where would you put that in your house?
Definitely in the washroom, son.
Definitely the washroom. Please, in the washroom, sir. But imagine, I have spent 100,000. Okay, I've spent 10 lakh rupees. It will go that mind-boggling figures. It goes up to 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs. You can spend on a single piece. Huh? I'm not talking about the whole toilet of the house. Oh, I've spent so much. I will put it right in the center in my living room. And everybody who comes, that's the best seat to be seated on. It's the most expensive seat in the home. So you can't offer them and say, please, Virajman hoye, Ashama. Have I spoken the right Hindi word? Virajman hoye means please take your seat. Where? Right in the living room, I put that. Sir, it may be of certain value, but it has a right place. Where has it to be placed? Where do you pratishtan it? So these thoughts has to be pratishtan, has to be planted at the right time, at the right hour, for it to help you to cross this mire of delusion. Otherwise, this knowledge also will bind you to the world. Remember that. It also will cause additional trouble to you. So you please don't undermine that 4 to 6. What come may. Have faith and surrender, Hariji. I'm borrowing your words. Have faith in me, surrender to the truth, and do what? Thanks, Reddy Garu. Unless you have something more to say, but I want Hariji to answer this question.
I think this 4 to 6 is really challenging. Maybe with the 2 years of satsang, I could able to bring the clock back from 6 to 5. Still, 5 to 4 is a big journey for me. And
no, I think keep it at 5 going. Keep it at going. What come may, you keep it at 5, and then slowly it will come to 4:30, 4:45, 4:30, and then it will come to.
So expecting in a couple of months' time, bringing a lifetime to 4 could be really challenging. It's whatever we
don't put any deadlines. It's not something you work on deadlines. It starts crystallizing even much before you think how it works. It works miracles, but you don't have to put a deadline. But your commitment is that I must do it every day. What come may. If that sets in, then you don't know how it works. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you.
So, Hariji, that faith and surrender. So, what should you do? Faith and surrender.
Trust and get up.
Avalda. Have that trust and faith and surrender
And rise.
and rise. Which means phenomenal sacrifice to something which you have done. You cannot. You can't be this close and yet so far away. That hour is too precious to be lost. It's too valuable to be missed by any one of us. So let's not compromise. Okay? So, Daivi hesham gunamayi mama maya duratya mameva ye prapadhyante maya metam tarantite. We'll take up, we got another 5 minutes. We have 5 more minutes? Yes, we do. So, that's 15th verse, please. Namam dushkrutino mudhaha prapadyante naradhamaha mayaya pahritadnyanaha asuram bhavamashitaha namam dushkrutino mudhaha prapadyante naradhamaha mayaya pahritadnyanaha asuram bhavamashitaha. In fact, this is the concluding verse of the topic, where don't forget the topic. The topic speaks about the wishes do not know or seek self, 12 to 15. So the 15th verse, he says, the evildoers, the deluded. I think these men like this word mudha. Every guru keeps using liberally the word mudha. Mudha means fool, deluded fellows. So whenever they look at us, what do we say? Stupid fellows, mudha mate. And when they say mudha mate, they are very lovingly calling. Yeah. But dushkrutinaha, the evildoers, the deluded, the lowest of men, do not seek me. Naradhamaha, the lowest of men, namam, they don't seek me. Prapadhyante, the word prapadhyante, namam prapadhyante means do not seek me. And then he says, they whose discrimination is destroyed because of delusion follow the way of the demons. Mayaya paharita jnana, apaharita jnana, those whose wisdom is destroyed. Asuram bhavam ashritaha, such people have taken refuge in the way of the demons. Asuram. In fact, the next set of verses, 16 to 19, he's talking of the virtuous type of people. So here he's sealing how the vicious do not know or seek the self. I don't know, I'm very afraid of reading this verse. Look at the amount of adjectives he's using, Rajima. What are the grammar? What are the grammar adjectives?
Evildoers, deluded, deprived of knowledge, demons.
In one verse, not that in how frustrated he must be looking at us. You fellas actually fit for nothing characters. You know, when you get very angry with someone, how do you, if a boss is angry at an employee and not done his job well, you let go of your frustration. Maybe he's letting go of all his frustration on us. So the 3 words he's using to describe our state: dushkrutinaha, evildoers; mudha, deluded; naradhamaha, the lowest of men. Three words she uses to indicate our state. And these are the people. Who are the people who fall into this category? When would one fall into this category? Gayatri Ma?
A tamasic person.
The Rajasic and Tamasic people.
Rajasic also sometimes, yes. Deluded,
Not
all
sometimes.
this. Yes.
Rajasic are also deluded. No? The Rajasic and Tamasic people. Yeah. But the important thing is, and we also have got Rajas and Tamas.
Yes.
You have got Rajas and Tamas. I have got Rajas and Tamas. Do you mean to say we all are evildoers? Are we the lowest of men? Are we deluded? So what classifies people to be the lowest of men? It
Who
is
does
not,
not even,
huh? Yes, ma?
who does not have little of also of sattvic quality at all.
It is not possible, no. Even the worst of fellow will have some sattva in him. Even you take an asura, demon, even in him, they, even these business fellows who are very shrewd and very manipulative, they are not naive. They are very, very shrewd. Even those fellows, first thing in the morning, that fellow he will do his prayer. So first thing in the morning, he will not cheat you as much as he will cheat you the rest of the day. Other day we had to buy a hose, a water hose, because the one we had has cracked. So we had to buy a hose. So we went to the marketplace for some other work. I said, hey, this is the place for us to buy a hose, because it's so difficult to go there just for that. I just said, okay, let's pick up. So we went to one of the shops and said, hey, we want a hose. I said, okay, sir, which one you want? And we want something best quality. Okay, he said, give the best quality, because otherwise it will keep cracking every 2 months. I got to come back to you, man. Give me something which will last for a while. Yes, sir. How much is this? Sir, it is 1950 rupees, 1950 rupees. It's one whole roll. Then I said, "Arey yaar, hum ashram ke liye leke ja rahe hain." Okay, it is ashram, 69 rupees. Best price for you. So even that fellow who is very manipulative in money, I just said, "Arey yaar, ashram ke liye leke ja rahe hain." Immediately 350 rupees he deducted. So that fellow also has some good. The fact that he said, you're doing for an ashram, I don't want any profit from you. I'm giving at the rate at what it is actually virgin quality. You will not get this anywhere. I'll prove you. You any crack, anything in 3 months you come, I'll give back a new one to you, brand new one. I'll give you. 3 months time I'm giving you. So we became lovely friends because I said, I'm taking for the ashram. So that fellow also has some ethical values in him. There's some sattva in him. You see? So what is the verse saying? When does one become evil? When does one become deluded? When does one become lowest? Is when you are, we can't run away from the world, can we? For 1 hour, we switched off the phone. For 1 hour, you have sat in isolation. After this, you'll have to go back into your families. You got to go back into your world. The world is a reality for you. Now, it is not the question of not interacting. The question is, when you interact with the world as an end in itself, you become an evil. You become deluded. But when you interact with it as a means to an end, it becomes a stepping stone. So everything in life should not be a roadblock. It should not be an end in itself. But you interact with the world as a means to get to the end, which is realization, no problem. And there's nothing as you must do minimum this much and not maximum that much. No, you can have whatever you want. We're not saying you should not contact the senses. I go back home, there will be a sumptuous, healthy meal to satisfy your palate. You mean to say you should not have food which will satisfy your tongue? No. You can't satisfy the tongue because it is sense indulgence. Therefore, every morsel of food, eat a raw green chili and bite it. And it must cause so much pain and tears in your eyes. You are not pampering your senses. It doesn't mean that, please. No, please. But you don't, as they say, you don't live to eat. You need to eat to live. So put some sense. How much do I eat? What do I eat? What should not eat to live? I need some, everything is for what? So as a means to an end, not an end in itself. So what makes a Rakshasa, a demon, is one who worships the world as an end in itself. But when you use it as a means to an end, you become a daiva. You become a godly person, you become a virtuous person. Otherwise, you become a vicious person when you are in it as an end in itself. So if we all can gain that vision that whatever I'm doing is a means to an end, and if you have that perception, very certainly you will cross over the divine illusion. To have that perception right throughout is not easy, but I will keep appearing and reminding you every week. Don't worry. But midweek, you have to remind yourself. Okay. But I will remind you until you get tired of me. That I don't know. Sometime sooner or later you'll get tired. How many 30 years I've been talking. So don't try to fool me. Saying, no, Guruji, how can I leave you? I'll be with you. Story. Only my shadow only has been following me. Nobody else has followed me for 30 years. So men may come, men may go. I go on forever. Come along with me as long as you can. Like Yudhishthira, after the war, he went walking up to the heavens. The story goes walking up, and he, with his 4 brothers and Draupadi, the wife, all of them went on a journey, and invariably any trek up is single file. So each one was behind each other. And as the story goes, by the time he reached the gates of the heaven, when he turned back, nobody was there behind him. Everybody fell off due to the course of the journey. And the only one that was with him was, apparently there was a stray dog that was following him. Very beautifully how they have put it. And when the doorkeepers were very pleased to have a visitor, because nobody gets there, very rare visitors go there. Next door, hell, many people, heavy traffic there. Heaven, not many traffic. So when they were very happy to welcome the heavenly guest, the gates were open, carpet was laid, and when he was entering, they stopped. It's only meant for you, not the dog. Then he said, if you don't allow the dog, I also will not enter. So he showed enormous trust and faith in the dog, Harishji. So he had that faith in the dog. He didn't want to turn back. And when he turned back and walking away from the gates, the dog was none other than Lord Narayana. Lord Narayana showed up and said, I'm always with you. I'm always with you, every step, but you got to take that step forward. No compromise. So I know. You got to be in this zone. Once you're in it, you will get lost in these thoughts. I don't get tired, but I need to stop. Otherwise, I'll only be talking to myself very soon. Before that happens, I will chant the Shanti mantra, so that some sanity prevails, Otherwise, this fellow, something's wrong with this fellow, you will say. Right. Ashama, you wanted to say something? Please, we will be happy to conclude with your lovely message.
When we were mentioning about there being some sattvic in every tamasic, I recall a small, what I read somewhere. There was this drunkard. Every night he would go to a bar, get drunk, and go home on staggering feet. religiously. Next to the bar was a temple. So invariably, he would stop there, remove his chappals, fold hands, and then go. So the priest watched this for a few days. And then he said, does he even realize that he's stopping here and doing namaskar to the idol, there, the god? So what he did, he removed the idol of Lord Shiva and placed the idol of Ganesha over there. So that time when this drunkard staggered, stopped, he did namaskar and he walked away 2 steps. He came back and he points to Ganesha and he says, please tell your father I came today. So there's good
No,
quality in everybody.
yes, absolutely. No, I will steal this lovely story, but I don't think I can tell the way you have said it, but really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yes. Nice one, very nice one. Right. Thank you, Ma. Thank you. Thank you. Sanjay, yes, sorry, I think you have posted a comment. I'm just noticing it. Perhaps clarify that before we call it.
It was just a question, but it's something I can ponder on. It was a thought I had about with the boat analogy. It was the boat metaphor, and I was just wondering the word discrimination in that verse, if I didn't misread.
The 13th verse or the 14th verse?
The latest one we just read. Was the word
15th.
discrimination? Was the word discrimination in there? If it wasn't, then it's my mistake.
We took the reference of the boat metaphor in the 14th verse. Mark, can we have the 14th verse, please? Is
And
this
what's
the one you're referring to?
no, verse 15, please. Verse 15.
Right. Okay.
So discrimination in this sense, they whose discrimination is destroyed by delusion. This discrimination, is this the intellect? Are we saying?
Yes.
Yes.
The discrimination, or you can call it the wisdom or the intellect, all one and the same.
Okay, so I read Rajima's reply just now. So intellect was from her, not from me, just to clarify. Thank you.
Right, sure, no problem. Thank you. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.